Welcome to On the Line. I'm Christine Williams. Coming up, remembering the Holocaust. Stay tuned. Understanding genocide, a difficult and faraway concept for most of us to wrap our head around for good reason. How could a sinister ideology invoke so much hatred as to execute an organized mission to kill millions of people, defaming, demonizing, and humiliating them like the Nazis did to the Jews? Today, we're remembering the Holocaust. Why? To give insight and focus on the lessons learned. Can we prevent the likes of a Holocaust from happening again? My guest today recently went on a visit to concentration camps in Poland. They're here to talk about it. We'll also show you some pictures, so let's meet them now. Max Eisen is a Holocaust survivor. Bill Blair is Chief of Police of the Toronto Police Service. And Avi Benlolo is President and CEO of the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies. Later on, Tarek Fatah will join us by phone. He is an author, speaker, and founder of the Muslim Canadian Congress. And for you watching, we love to hear from you. We're going to be talking from many aspects today as we explore the roots of the Holocaust, what it means today, why we need to pay attention, and also highlight this very critical trip to Poland. And while we do so, we want to hear what your thoughts are, so don't hesitate and call in at any time with your comments. Thank you all so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Max, I'm going to start with you. I think it's very exciting to have you here to highlight the Holocaust. I mean, you were there looking at you. There's a beam in your eyes. You seem happy. You seem open, very alive and invigorated. Yet you've seen the most atrocious things in your life. So I'd like you to start by telling us your story.
Well, I'm very excited to be here. Yesterday, May the 6th, 1945, was the day when I was liberated in Austria in a camp called Ebensee. And I spent 1 year as a slave laborer in a death camps and labor camps and so on. And it was a tragedy for my family and for the Jewish people in Europe. It was an event that stripped myself and many others of our entire families. We came back from these camps and there was no continuity. Everything from the past was sort of gone. There were only memories. And we were deported from Hungary in 1944 in April, the last year of the war, to a camp called Birkenau, Auschwitz. We were transported in cattle cars, some 100 people crammed in without any possibility of replenishing the pail of water that they gave us initially or to go to a toilet for 3 days. And you can practically write a book of what it's like to be locked in with so many people for 3 days and nights. And on the third night, the train came to a sudden stop, and we could hear the doors being open. And I thought that we finally have arrived, that nothing could be worse than what I've just experienced. Little did we know what really was awaiting us, because we in '44 never heard about this place. Living in Hungary, in a fascist country where everything was censored, and we just didn't know. So when our door was open, there was a man in a striped outfit who was yelling the first two words in German, "Raus schnell," out fast. And we were yanked out on this platform with our families and other people and all the other wagons. And you're confused. You don't know what happened to you, and you're in a strange place. There's a terrible smell in the air of burning flesh, and there are floodlights and huge guards with dogs. And there's an unease. You have a certain feeling, but you don't really know. And then you are selected. Men and women are being separated. And this is done by a SS officer who is a doctor and who flicks his hand to the right or to the left. The right means that you were chosen as a slave laborer, and to the left, like my mother with my two little brothers and my little sister, my grandparents and my aunt, they were sent to the left. And on this platform, they kept telling us that you will see your families tomorrow morning. So you see, they use the deception right on this platform to keep moving us along, because they had a way of, they called it processing a transport at a certain time limit, because in 1944, transports from Hungary were coming practically 24 hours a day. And in a span of 3 months, 450,000 Hungarian Jews were gassed here. So now my father and uncle were sent to the right, and I came in front of this officer, and he looked at me, and he sent me to the right. I was 15 years old.
15.
And we were taken into a barrack, and we were ordered to strip our clothing, and the only thing we're allowed to keep were our boots. And then our hair was shaved, and we were sent through a shower. And that was the only good thing about it, because for 3 days there was no water to drink, so you were able to take a few gulps of water and wash yourself. And then naked, we were taken into these barracks, and we were put into these triple-tier bunks. And the women that were selected, they were processed in a women's area, and they were taken to the women's camp. So you lay down on these wooden planks, and believe me, it felt really good to be able to lie down in a horizontal position after standing for 3 days. And you were you went out like a light, and a few hours later it was, they're hitting the bunks with a stick, raus, schnell, out fast. This was now a daily diet, these words. Everything had to be done at a fast, double pace, you see. And a bunch of us naked men were hauled out in front of our barrack, and I saw this entire big infrastructure of Birkenau. It was a beautiful sunny morning, and I have records from this particular day that was recovered, and I know that this was May the 8th, 1944. And I was totally confused. I didn't know where I was. I thought it was a huge industrial zone. Buildings, there were some 4 huge buildings with chimneys. Fire and smoke was coming out through these chimneys, and there were many emaciated people behind barbed wire fences. It was very confusing for me, and just moments later, some of the old-timers wearing these striped outfits came with a metal canister, and we were given a cup of tea. So my father asked them, "Are we going to see our families today?" And they laughed at him, and they said, "Don't you know where you are? Your families have gone through the chimney." This was the lingo, so to speak, in here, that the only way out of here is you will die of starvation or beating, or for sure you'll go through the chimney. You'll be gassed, cremated, and you'll go. So that was very difficult to digest. But there was no way to grieve, you know, because you were under a steady moving machinery. You were now being given tattooed numbers and striped outfits, and they were asking who is a farmer, who is electrician, who is this and that. And 100 of us were put into a unit. We were all volunteered as farmers, and we were marched to a camp down the road, which was the labor camp called Auschwitz I. And I became a slave laborer working for the German Reich. And I was in Auschwitz I for 9 months. And my father and my uncle and myself, we were in the same unit. And they were truly my guardian angels, because without them, I would not have survived the first week in this hellhole. Because work here was heavy labor, and the diet, the food that was given us was 300 calories a day. It was a liquid diet, a cup of tea in the morning, and a bowl of soup at lunch, which was mostly water. And at night, you received a cup of so-called coffee and a thin slice of bread.
How did you survive this? Sheer will.
Well,
how did you survive, Max?
You had to, well, I think that I survived this initial indoctrination to this place that my father and uncle were, you know, without them I wouldn't have survived the first week. And unfortunately, they were selected out 2 months later. Selection became